Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 538 for the 10th of February 2019. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. It's been very hot and muggy over the last week. Yesterday was particularly muggy, it seemed. Today is a bit cooler. Now, coming up on this week's show, we talk to Professor Richard Wiseman, who has just released a new book called Shoot for the Moon. Richard's going to tell us what this book's all about, why it's called Shoot for the Moon, and what inspired him to write it. Always a pleasure to speak to Professor Richard Wiseman, and I have been using his material from Quirkology, which we also speak about, in science presentations for many, many years. The court jester of science, Professor Richard Wiseman. Also on this week's show, we bring you news of a new president for the Friends of Science in Medicine. The Friends of Science in Medicine is a very necessary and worthwhile organisation here in Australia, promoting good science in medicine and battling quackery and fakery. Then I speak to Paul Flemons from the Australian Museum and Patrick Tegart from the Office of Environment and Heritage about citizen science. They both gave a presentation the other day, a few days ago, at Skeptics in the Pub here in Sydney, to talk about how you, me, and everybody else, as citizens, can help contribute to good science. And then from the pages of the Skeptic Magazine, the journal from Australian Skeptics, we revisit the time Australian Skeptics attempted to test a man who claimed to have something like paranormal powers. And this is a report by our challenge coordinator, Ian Bryce. Did we discover psychic powers? Find out later on. And to round off the show, it's Trish Chips with our new reporter, Trish Hann. Trish was at Skeptics in the Pub as well and was asking the pub goers the big question, who should be the patron saint of skepticism? Stay tuned at the end of the show for some more announcements and upcoming events, but right now it's time for me to run downstairs and make myself a cheese and spinach toastie. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. And joining me now all the way from wonderful, beautiful Edinburgh is Professor Richard Wiseman. Hello, Richard.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm very well. It's really wonderful to catch up with you. We seem to do this, I don't know, at least every year or maybe every other year to find out your latest adventures. First of all, I noticed that Quirkology is still steaming on, the video series. You must have so much fun making that.
Well, it's astonishing. I mean, actually, nowadays we don't make that many videos. We've just posted one, actually, to promote the new book. But normally we don't. And the astonishing thing is, as you say, it still continues, still getting, I don't know what it is, hundreds of thousands of views a week. So thank you to everyone who watches. And I still get emails about videos that I made probably a decade ago from kids and so on. So yeah, get onto YouTube. You live on eternally on there.
You do, and I love Quirkology. There are so many good videos up there to see, but the creativity that and the time and the effort that you do, or you have done in the past, to make those incredible videos where the impossible happens, and you can hit pause and wonder about it for a week and then watch the conclusion and see behind the scenes. That must have been joyful and frustrating at the same time to make all those.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, in exactly equal measure. So when you get it, you kind of go, yes! And then what you wipe out of your memory, thank goodness, for the joys of the fallibility of memory in this instance, is you, next year or so, you forget the hundreds of takes that didn't work, the huge arguments you had over it, the convincing of that it was actually impossible at some point in that process, the carrying on, the perseverance, and all of that. So, no, it is great. I mean, every single one I can remember doing because we did it so many times, basically.
Yeah, because at the end of most videos, there are a couple of what we could call outtakes, I suppose, where it failed, where the person hiding behind the chair or whatever it was sneezed or coughed or something fell over. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, funny enough, actually, we were just filming. It wasn't a Quirkology video. I'm involved in putting some magic into a West End show, and I was just filming something day before yesterday for them, and we did it in I think 2 takes. It was a levitating suitcase. We did it in 2 takes, and they were like, "Okay, fine." And I was going, "No, you don't understand. Normally we'd do like 200 takes to get something like this, and we just got incredibly lucky early on." And then they just thought that was the process. So I was going, "No, we normally we bring sandwiches when we do a shoot because we know we're going to be there for a very long time."
Now, folks, if you haven't seen the range of videos at Quirkology on YouTube, there will be a link in this week's show notes, and I strongly advise you to do it because the other thing I'm involved with, one of the other things is, of course, the Mystery Investigators live show for schools. And for, 5, 6, 7 years now, Richard, we have been playing as part of the live presentation your video on, now is it perceptions? It's, with the assumptions, I beg your pardon, assumptions, of course, with the giant coffee cup and the pictures on the wall and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, now that one actually was, I think, 2 or 3 takes. It really was. Set it up and just did it. And that was unusually, I filmed that one on my own and did it. And that one really did go in the can incredibly quickly. And yeah, it's been shared a lot on Facebook and Twitter. So lots of fun.
And the series of bets you will always win, is that also on the Quirkology section?
Yeah, absolutely. They are the most popular videos. I looked the other day and one of them got 34 million views, and they are science-based bets that you'll always win. And for some reason, it just caught fire as soon as we put those out there. And then there's a book that came off of that as well. So all fun. Good, clean fun. That's what I like to say.
Good, clean science fun. Now let's talk about your new book, which is called Shoot for the Moon. An interesting angle on science and, dare I say, motivation. Can you tell me what inspired you to make this book and what's it all about?
Well, it was based on a chance conversation. So I was talking to a friend of mine who's Helen Keane, who is a comedian, but also a huge kind of space fan. She does lots of science comedy. And we're talking about Apollo and landing men on the moon. And I said, obviously, there's been huge amounts written about the technology, but how much has been written about the psychology, the mindset that put us on the moon? And she said, well, not very much, actually, hardly anything. And I said, well, that would be a fun project. And she said, well, the people that you'd really want to speak to are what are called the mission controllers, this small group of people that sat at the heart of the Apollo missions and were really there guiding Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin down. And I said, yeah, but how am I going to reach these people? And she said, well, you should talk to my friend Craig. And I said, oh, is Craig connected with NASA? And she said, no, he's a welder in Wales. And I went, right. And she said, no, he's befriended all these mission controllers. He's hugely passionate about Apollo. Go and talk to Craig. So I got in touch with Craig, and I told him what I was doing. And Craig went, yep, I'll put you in touch with all these people. And I said, well, hold on a second. It's the 50th anniversary of that happening. So they must be very, very, very elderly people. Are they even still alive? And this is when I found out the first amazing thing about mission control, which is when Armstrong and Aldrin walked out onto the moon, the average age in that room, the group of people that were doing it, the average age, 26. They were a phenomenally young bunch of people. And so therefore now they're in their sort of late 70s, a few of them early 80s. And so I went and spoke to them and interviewed them, and no one had asked them about the psychology before. Everyone had asked them about the technology, and then sort of drew out the lessons of achievement and, as you say, sort of motivation. And really the book is about not only how they did what they did, but how you can incorporate those same lessons into your life when you want to do something.
Wow, because, of course, as you say, it's 50 years, coming up 50 years since the first moon landings. And we've gone through the period in the last 20 years, not so much now, of course, the moon hoaxes. The people say that we never went to the moon. And you too must be sick of this. Occasionally people will look at me and say, you skeptics, you don't even think we went to the moon. That's when I tear my hair out.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. You go, no, really, that's not what... That's not really my central message.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, it of course, an achievement of the ages. It's still stunning to this day. And what an interesting angle for a book. It must have been endlessly fascinating to talk to these people.
Well, it was it was astonishing because, I'll give you one sort of example. So you have, I don't know how much people know about the moon landings, but basically 3 astronauts blast off from the Earth, they go to the moon, they orbit the moon, and then 2 of them get into a small thing, which is called the lunar lander, and go down onto the moon. And it's, while the other one stays in the kind of orbiting craft. And it is terrifying because the technology they're using, the old adage is absolutely true that you've got more technology in modern day smartphone than you've got certainly involved in those spacecraft. And no one had ever done this before. So to put it into perspective, at the time that Kennedy said, let's go to the moon, America had gone about 100 miles away from the surface of the Earth. The space station and the shuttles, they go about 250 miles. The going to the moon is 250,000 miles. And you've got to land, and you've got to get out. No one's ever got out in that atmosphere before. They thought the dust may be so thick on the moon that you'd simply sink into it and die like quicksand. And then you've got to get back on your craft, get back into that orbiting craft, and get back to Earth. So, it's an astonishing achievement. And so you imagine Aldrin and Armstrong, they get into this tiny craft. They're going down to the surface of the moon, and they're being watched by 500 million people live. It's the biggest event in the history of humanity. And there's a guy called Steve Bales in Mission Control. He's 26, and it's his job to essentially guide them down. He's a key part of that guidance team. And suddenly, a computer alarm comes up, and he makes this historic decision about whether or not they should continue or abort. And so I'm reading about this amazing piece of history, 26-year-old, 500 million people watching, history in the making. I'm reading about this, and the next minute, I'm talking to him. I'm talking to Steve Bales, who now is going, yeah, I did that when I was 26, yeah. And I'm saying to him, how long did you have to decide? This alarm flashes up. How long did you have? And he said, I think if you listen to the audio, I think it's probably 3 seconds. And you're going, oh my goodness, these people were history in the making. And you talk to them, it's a different mindset to the one we have now in terms of success. And I think, in terms of talking to the thing that really struck me was how humble they were. I've spoken to lots of organizations about luck and success. It's one of my areas of psychology. This were a group of people who never use the I word. It's we. We did everything. And when you try and talk to them about their achievements, they keep trying to get you to talk to other people who are more important than they are in their mind. And so it's an astonishingly humble group of people who did so much. And so the book is this kind of untold story, I think, of achievement.
Before we go, Richard, there is a promotional video you made about the book where you actually sent the book itself into space.
That was very, very mad. So there we found a company called Sent into Space in the UK. I said, could we launch our book into space? And they went, yes, of course we can. And so we put it onto a balloon. It goes up about 35 kilometers. You get these amazing shots, which are on the Quirkology channel of the book, with the whole of the Earth in the background. And it's incredible, and it's an amazing thing to do. And then if you watch the video, you will see right at the end that I say, as a joke, my calculations is that the book will stay up there for quite a long time. And the idea was that somebody threw a book off camera and it landed just in front of me. And what actually happens is they threw the book, and with astonishing luck, bad luck, it hits me very hard, firmly on the head. And so there's a lot of swearing from me. So for all of the actual danger of launching something into space. That went absolutely swimmingly, and the real danger for me was idiot Wiseman trying to get a joke shot at the end of the day. So, it was a fun video to make, though. Amazing video and amazing work they do.
Well, you're not known as the court jester of science for nothing, Richard, and I'll put a link to all those things on this week's show notes. But for now, Professor Richard Wiseman, all the way over there in beautiful Edinburgh, thank you very much.
Pleasure, thank you.
So what's Quackology all about? Well, there are surefire bets that you can use to impress your friends, incredible illusions that will blow your mind, interactive experiments to bamboozle your brain, magic tricks, and we don't just perform the tricks but also take you backstage so you can see the secret, practical jokes to make you laugh, and lots of amazing science stunts that always work. Yeah, kinda. So subscribe now and watch our videos. You won't believe your eyes.
Now here's a message from our friends at the Friends of Science in Medicine. This organisation battles quackery and has been around for about 6-7 years, battles quackery and promotes good science in medicine, hence the name, Friends of Science in Medicine. Their website is scienceinmedicine.org.au with links in this week's show notes. And this statement comes to us published on the 6th of February 2019. Friends of Science in Medicine welcomes new president. Monash University Associate Professor Ken Harvey, AM, is the new president of Friends of Science in Medicine. He replaces Professor John Dwyer AO, the founding president. Friends of Science in Medicine, founded in 2011, has grown to become a major critic of unscientific health practices and fraudulent health claims. It has advised governments and the media, made numerous submissions to enquiries, and provided extensive public advice concerning dubious health claims and practices. It successfully advocated the removal of private health insurance taxpayer-funded rebates from natural therapies that lacked evidence of efficacy. Professor Harvey said, quote, "Valuing scientific rigour is especially important in an age where unsubstantiated health claims are rampant and scientific consensus is imbalanced by the views of extremists." End quote. Friends of Science in Medicine campaigns against the unethical promotion of therapeutic goods and services to customers. Quote, "We critique unproven and exploitative services offered by medical practitioners, such as the infusion of intravenous vitamins and chelation therapy. We are equally concerned about traditional Chinese medical practitioners claiming that acupuncture can treat infertility or naturopaths advocating homeopathy," end quote, said Professor Harvey. Quote, "We encourage tertiary institutions and students of medicine and health sciences to critically appraise therapeutic products and services as part of the courses offered. Complementary medicines provide a fertile field for students to assess the often outrageous claims made and report regulatory breaches," end quote. Last year, the Therapeutics Goods Advertising Code Council and Complaint Resolution Panel, CRP, were abolished, and the Therapeutics Goods Administration, TGA, took over the advertising complaints system. Health Minister Hunt said these measures, quote, "will enable potential harms from inappropriate advertising to be comprehensively prevented," end quote. Quote, "Research by members of Friends of Science in Medicine and consumers' lack of trust in the TGA shows that the minister's assertion has not been realised," end quote, said Professor Harvey. He concluded, quote, "The critique by Royal Commissioner Haynes on the regulatory failure in Australia's financial services industry is equally applicable to the TGA. A failure to enforce the law undermines the authority of the regulator, whose fundamental responsibility is to do just that. It also encourages others to break the law, leading to a race to the bottom and consumer detriment. These are important federal election issues." End quote. So congratulations to Professor Ken Harvey, a worthwhile man in a worthwhile position. And for more information, I encourage you to visit scienceinmedicine.org.au, where you can read a lot more about the organisation.
Hi, I'm Darren McKee, one of the hosts of The Reality Check. Each week, my co-host and I explore a range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. You can find us on iTunes, your favorite podcasting platform, and on Facebook by searching for The Reality Check, or by following us on Twitter at @TRC_podcast. Until then, keep an open mind, but not so open your brain falls out.
It's Skeptics in the Pub, and we just had a wonderful talk about citizen science. And who do we have here?
Paul Flemons, Manager of Digital Collections and Citizen Science at the Australian Museum.
And
Patrick Tegart, one of the citizen science scientists at the Office of Environment and Heritage.
And I'll start with you, Paul. You were showing us interesting things about how citizens are collecting data points. And one of the things that I found fascinating was the frogs.
Yeah, it's a great project.
And is this really engaging to the public to find out about frogs?
Well, people love frogs. Doesn't everybody love frogs?
Yes.
But certainly we've got a great project team at the museum, and Jodie Rowley, who is our herpetologist and frog expert at the museum, is an extraordinary personality and a project lead, and she's tireless in her media work, and that has a big impact in terms of promoting Frog ID. She's on the radio, she's on the TV, she's in the newspapers, she's very knowledgeable, she's got funny stories, she does frog calls on Saturday mornings with Simon Marnie, so she's an amazing benefit to the project, but also the project itself. I mean, it's mobile technology. Everybody's got a mobile phone. Everybody can download Frog ID. Everybody hears frogs calling, maybe not in daily life, but it's not that hard to go and hear a frog calling. You record a frog call, you get feedback on what sort of frog species that was. You look at the project grow and how we're learning more and more about frogs. We're learning about how some frogs are travelling because of transport of horticultural products and things like that. Some frogs are declining because of climate change. We're finding possible new species. We're finding species extensions. So it's really it's an amazing project. We've got collaborators from all over Australia. All the museums around Australia are involved. Very passionate individuals from around the country, which particularly the Northern Territory and Western Australia at the moment, which mean that we get really good pictures of an understanding of the distributions of frogs in those areas, which we haven't had a lot of data on before because they're relatively remote areas. And so it's quite a phenomenal project. It's
a wonderful example of citizens doing science. And you were giving an example of how citizens doing science were examining the effects on the coast, our coastal regions.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the CoastNap project, which is a collaborative approach between the Water, Wetlands and Coast branch of OEH and also UNSW's Water Research Lab. And the project is focusing at monitoring our shorelines and looking at the subtle changes by allowing the community to capture images from photo points and then give them to the researchers so they can do an image analysis on those images before providing the results of seeing how that site's changed. And one thing I forgot to mention with it all, because it's such a simple approach, it's now global. So from its humble beginnings in Sydney, it's now in the UK, USA and South America, with, I believe, more than 10 new sites going to be put up in New South Wales not too long.
That's a fantastic idea because, as you were describing it and showing us on the screen, there's a set point along the coast and people can walk up, put their mobile phones at this set point, take a picture and then submit it.
Yeah, absolutely. They could just be going to the beach for the swim and they can take a photo as they go. We live in the Instagram age, and just like that, 2 seconds, they've contributed important information for our researchers, and that can influence how we manage our beaches going into the future.
I love citizen science. How can people find out more about what you're doing at the museum?
Well, they can get in touch with me at the museum or look up the Australian Museum website for the Australian Museum Centre for Citizen Science. I'd also recommend the Australian Citizen Science Association, which there's a website for that as well, and it is coordinating Citizen Science Australia-wide. So you can register with AXA. You can find out about what projects are available in your area. The Australian Museum, we've got obviously Frog ID is national, so you can be involved in Frog ID. Digivol is an international project, so you can be involved online with Digivol. Australasian Fishes, once again, is online as well. So all these projects, wherever you are in Australia or around the world, you can be involved. And AXA has more projects you can find out more about, and you can actually find out how you can be involved in the process of governing citizen science in Australia and growing it and making it more, reach more people and have more impact.
Opportunities for everybody, and how can people find out about what you're doing?
So they can check out the Office of Environment and Heritage Citizen Science website, where we have a range of different projects looking at threatened species, water quality, and a range of other different initiatives. And they can explore them and then get in contact with us, and we can guide them in the right direction to the project coordinator, or just get in touch with us just to go, I have a great citizen science idea. Can you listen to me and explore what we can do in my backyard or in my environment? And we're happy to facilitate those conversations.
I think you've inspired me. We should have a citizen skepticism coming up next. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Thanks for the opportunity.
You know, I gotta say, Bigfoot's BS, but the chupacabra is totally the result of top-secret government genetic experiments on a remote island.
Taking medical advice from Gwyneth Paltrow, like steaming your lady parts and putting jade eggs all up in there, is a great way to improve your health.
Police from around the world regularly use psychics to solve crimes. They just don't talk about it.
Spontaneous human combustion is for sure a real thing. I've read all about it on the internet, and I worry someday it's going to happen to me.
We all have friends and family who believe these things and much more. Well, if you're a rational thinker who is tired of arguing on social media and never getting anywhere, we have a solution for you.
Join the Guerrilla Skepticism and Wikipedia team, and we will teach you how to add reliable scientific and skeptical information to the world's #1 source of information, Wikipedia.
We write new articles and improve existing ones. We remove pseudoscience, paranormal, and alt-med claims, substituting the actual facts. And we operate in many languages.
We've already reached tens of millions of people searching for information, but as you can imagine, we can never do enough.
So please, join us. All you need is a PC, a Facebook account, and the desire to help educate the planet. In fact, you'll be educating the world while you sleep.
Contact us at gsowteam@gmail.com. Guerrilla Skepticism. The time is now.
Music by PurplePlanet.com.
Now, recently we've been bringing you articles and reports from the Skeptic Magazine, the journal from Australian Skeptics, which is available to you. The entire collection, bar the last year, going back nearly 40 years online, at skeptics.com.au. Thousands upon thousands of reports and interviews and articles to read. And I thought this week I would bring you a report of a test undertaken by Australian Skeptics. I know it's very interesting. A lot of people find this intensely interesting to find out about testing psychics and so on, which we do from time to time. Or do we? We'll read on and find out. From volume 31, number 1, from March 2011. Turning to page 10, a report by Ian Bryce. Message not received. Ian Bryce reports on a test of telepathy with less than perfect communication. In 1980, Australian Skeptics announced that it would offer a monetary prize, initially $10,000 and now $100,000, for any Australian resident who could prove a paranormal or psychic ability or phenomenon. If such abilities or phenomena exist, then the laws of science would need revision. Obviously, this would be of great significance, and we would wish such abilities to be scientifically investigated. If, on the other hand, proponents of such abilities fail to perform as agreed, then that would cast serious doubt on the ability of that claimant to perform their claimed ability. That is not a universal negative, but a body of similar examples over time will cast doubt in a more general sense. Our procedure is to have an initial, less formal test to ascertain the nature of the claim, including, where relevant, the claimant's ability. If this proves to be positive, then we move to a formal test, the nature of which is mutually prepared and agreed. And if again this test is positive, the claimant will win the award to dispose of how they see fit. Since 1980, we have had challenges from around 100 claimants. About 30 of these have led to attempted demonstrations of paranormal powers, and about 10 have progressed to formal tests. A new test. In January 2010, we received an application that was different from the norm in that the initial claim arrived via a law firm. Embedded in the usual legal formalities was the statement that the client's ability was to transfer information by paranormal means from Australia to the United States of America, i.e. not through established telecommunications or other physical means. We would call this, quote, telepathy, end quote, although that was a term the claimant preferred not to use. The challenger was insistent that we prove our bona fides, though this was not reciprocated. The claimant was apparently reluctant to give his name, address, or identities of any assisting colleagues. Eventually we met the claimant and his lawyer at the latter's office and found the claimant was Barry Hill of Sydney. He described his ability to us, and we agreed on the following description, although without using the term telepathy. Quote, "The claim is that the claimant has the ability to send information to a remote receiver without using any communication means known to science." End quote. Test protocol. Hill had evidently spent some time with his lawyer working on a test procedure based on choosing from a list of shapes, words and numbers. Over a few months we refined this into a simple protocol designed to provide, quote, proper observing conditions, end quote, so that there would be confidence in the results. 6 lists of 10 words were prepared. Animals, Australian artists, countries, flowers, Australian poets, and, at Hill's insistence, Native American peoples. On the day, a 10-sided die would be used to select and mark one item from each list. During the half-hour test, Hill would transmit the information to his receiver in New York, who would mark the answers on their copy of the result sheet. Hill expected a perfect score, which could be expected only once in a million tests if chance alone operated. Logistics and security. The skeptics normally request that claimants cover any costs incurred by either party. In this case, there was no significant costs other than time and effort. The logistics required were considerable, as was security. We arranged our own team in New York, made up of local skeptics, in addition to our team in Sydney. Hill arranged for legal representatives in both cities to witness the event. The time difference dictated an early start in Sydney and late afternoon in New York. Rooms for the tests were booked, the exact location of which were known only to one person until the time of the test. A meeting place within walking distance of each room was arranged in both cities and revealed to all parties 24 hours in advance. Once on site, electronic devices were to be surrendered, with the option of frisk searches. Telephone communication was to be strictly controlled and not used during the 30-minute test period. The die would not be thrown until after lockdown. At the end, the receiving party would relay their received words and the results would be evident. If the tests were successful, or even significantly above chance, we would offer a more formal retest at a later date, following additional security procedures. Hill readily agreed that if technical means were found to have been used after the event, Any prize paid would be refunded. To his credit, he requested that the prize be paid to nominated charities. As the test date approached, I asked Hill to provide contact details for his New York receiver and her lawyer representative. Among various excuses, all we were told was that his receiver was named Sue and her lawyer Jamie, and that communications would be available on the day. Test day. At the designated time, 6:30 a.m. Sydney time on November 4, 2010, teams on two sides of the world converged on their respective meeting places. The Skeptics team in Sydney consisted of Eran Segev, President of Australian Skeptics, Ian Bryce, Challenge Coordinator, Richard Saunders, Vice President, Jessica Singer, lawyer and New South Wales Committee member, and Peter Rogers, a magician. 5 people from the Skeptics was indicative of the thoroughness of our approach. Hill arrived minus his lawyer. Our New York team, Lisa and Jacob, made contact with us by mobile phone. They reported that they were still waiting on the specified corner for the claimant's receiver and her representative to arrive. The fact that it was winter in New York meant that this delay was considerably inconvenient for them. We asked Hill for his pair's mobile phone number. He told us that they did not have mobiles due to concerns over health. A New York lawyer without a mobile phone? The alarm bells got louder. At the test start time of 7 a.m, we in Sydney walked into the booked room and commenced our security precautions. At 7:20, the receiver pair had still not arrived, and we gave Barry back his mobile phone and asked him to call them. He insisted on doing this out of our sight and hearing. He reported to us that, quote, "they are on their way, held up in transport," end quote. At 7:30, Barry communicated again and reported that his team were stuck in an elevator in the lawyer's building. We asked to speak to them directly by phone. "No," he replied. "This building had mobile phone blockage as a precaution since the 9/11 attacks." Then how had he contacted them? Apparently to the lawyer's office landline, Hill said, who advised him that there was a lift stuck and his receivers were probably in it. As the room booking expired after an hour, the test was called off. On asked for his reaction, Hill said, quote, "I'm as mystified as you are," end quote. We all went home very disappointed. Aftermath. I later asked Hill for contact details of his New York team so we could verify what happened and provide an explanation for our American colleagues. He refused and instead requested that we give him contact details of our team. The mobile phone excuses were repeated. Both Sue and Jamie refused to use mobile phones due to health concerns. In addition, Hill said that, quote, "written advice of the lift failure cannot be obtained due to possible litigation," end quote. Hill offered no apology or explanation and instead demanded, quote, "the tests will resume in the first quarter of 2011, end quote. Conclusion. Formally, the tests failed because the claimant and his team did not perform as claimed. An unfortunate result of the way Hill had handled all this is that we have no evidence to support his account of Sue and Jamie's strange predicament or even of their existence. There is always the possibility that the claimant might be delusional, which is why we have preliminary tests. This is not to say this was the situation in this case, as the inability of the test to proceed may well have been due to misadventure. But to date, we have no information to substantiate that conclusion, and Hill, so far, has refused to give us relevant contact details so we can undertake our own investigations. This is a lesson for all tests, to ensure that all parties have full information prior to any test proceeding. Hill refused to give this information, and despite the fact that it was our $100,000 at risk, we acquiesced as an indication of our goodwill. Claimants and supporters of the paranormal claims are often sometimes too ready to cast aspersions against the skeptic's sincerity. We feel that, as indicated by the time and effort put into the test, that this is a totally unfair and unwarranted suggestion. We cannot always say the same for claimants. despite Hill's unilateral statement that the tests would be re-held early this year. From our point of view, we will not resume another test of Hill for 12 months at least, if at all. Any future tests will require complete, unrestricted information supplied to us and direct contact with any assistance he may have. We would sincerely like to thank our New York contacts, Lisa and Jacob, for volunteering to take part in this investigation and for their diligence and time. It indicates the great value of having a network of skeptics around the world to investigate such claims. Whether they would be willing to brave the New York City winter again, particularly considering the failure of the test, is up to them. And that was Message Not Received, written by Ian Bryce, and you can read that and many more articles for yourself by visiting www.skeptics.com.au and following the links to the magazine.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. Thank you.
Let's have some Trish and Chips. Here's Trish Hann. Yes, it's Trish and Chips with Trish. Hello, Trish.
Hello.
Hello. Look, congratulations and welcome aboard. You've been on the Skeptic Zone before for a while, but now you're official.
Well, it's scary, isn't it?
We're at Skeptics in the Pub, by the way, and you and I are sitting here racking our brains trying to come up with this month's question. But you're seriously, you're on call and you could be whisked away at any moment.
Yep, if that horrible thing starts bleeping, then off I go.
What would you be doing when you go off then?
Oh, so I'm on call for interventional radiology tonight, which is basically if anyone in the Sydney surrounds has a stroke or starts unexplained bleeding or explained bleeding, then that's what we go off and fix.
So you fly out down the stairs.
Yeah, run down the stairs. Try not to break both of my legs in the process.
And you don't go to the kitchen. You go straight out and what, do you get a taxi and straight to the hospital?
Yeah, depending on the traffic.
Anyway, here we are at Skeptics, and it's filling up, I must say, Skeptics in the Pub, which it's a good thing. There's Jessica Singer over there, waving at us. She's setting up. We've got a smattering of committee members here tonight, and I brought my spoons, which is pretty cool.
Fantastic. When do you ever not have your spoons?
I don't, always.
You're always armed and dangerous. Spooned and dangerous.
So, but folks, you know, every month, Skeptic Zone listeners know there's a report from Skeptics in the Pub, and we always have the skeptical question of the month, and we can't think of one. What are we going to ask people tonight?
Who knows?
We're drawing blanks. Who knows?
Maybe that should be the question.
What should we ask you?
What's the question? If the answer is 42, what is the question?
Let's grab a drink and we'll try to come up with tonight's question.
That's a good plan. So after racking our brains for a few minutes, I think I finally come up with a question for tonight. And my first interviewee is going to be Richard Saunders. Hello, Richard.
Hello. Wow, what a surprise.
How does it feel to be on the receiving end?
Oh, I'm on the receiving end of a lot of things in my life. Oh, no, it's great. It's great.
Okay, so obviously next week is Valentine's Day. The patron saint of the lovers is Saint Valentine. Who, in your opinion, is the patron saint of skepticism?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I mean, it would be tempting simply to say James Randi and be done with it. And it's probably a good answer, but I'd be also tempted to say even before Randi would be Carl Sagan. And that might come up a lot too. I think that if you have two patron saints, it would have to be Randi and Sagan, I would think. Good question.
Excellent choices. Fantastic. So I'm now here with Jessica Singer. So Jessica Singer, who would your patron saint of skepticism be?
Oh, well, I'd say that begs the question of should skeptics have a saint at all? And I know there's a lot of hero worship in the movement, and particularly in the US.
Oh, yeah.
And in Australia, and probably in the UK as well, a common thread that runs through is that we don't like that kind of hero worship, and it's all far too uncritical and too, just...
It's a cult of personality, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say we're skeptics, no saints.
There we go. Controversial.
We turn the tables again. Trish, who do you think? Who do you think could be up there on the glass window as a patron saint of skepticism?
Well, I'm kind of torn because, I think it should be someone fairly photogenic.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it should be Tim Minchin.
Oh, that's a good answer. Tim Minchin, yeah.
Because, he's pretty good looking. He's not bad to look at. I'll have him on a stained glass window.
You can carry a tune.
Absolutely, exactly. And, he has sung about the Pope. So, we have here Ian Bryce. Ian, as you may or may not be aware, next week is Valentine's Day.
Oh, okay.
The patron saint of the lovers is Saint Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, who should be the patron saint of skepticism?
The patron saint of... Skepticism. Oh, I think that's James Randi.
Okay, another vote for James Randi. And why?
Well, he's done more to promote skepticism, I think, than most. St. Thomas Aquinas is often mentioned, but his doubts were a bit mediocre in my view. He doesn't really cut it. No, James Randi.
Okay.
He had the flim-flam. No, that's the wrong term. The bling. The bling represents skepticism.
His book was flim-flam.
That's right, and flim-flam was a derogatory term for the woo, but he had the bling in presenting it, so I'll say James Randi.
Excellent, good choice.
Obviously, okay.
I am now here with Tim Mendham, the Executive Officer for Australian Skeptics, to give him his full title. So Tim, what would your answer for the question tonight be?
Well, I've given this a great deal of thought over the years. I must have spent at least 5 minutes on it. But I would say, obviously, it has to be William of Ockham, known for his shaving gear.
He's got a sharp wit.
A very sharp wit. You can cut yourself with it, actually. So, William of Ockham's razor, which is, of course, in Latin... and I've forgotten what it is in Latin, but it's not nil desperandum, no, something else. But it obviously means do not multiply solutions beyond necessary. In other words, the simplest answer is normally the best. And basically, don't use explanations which are so complicated. They have to you have to change everything to make them fit. And this is what people like creationists and all sorts of people do. They have to twist and turn in their science, in quotes, to get something that works in the real world. Whereas often you just say, no, it's pretty straightforward, and this is the answer. And I would say William of Ockham is the patron saint.
That's a unique answer tonight. Well done. Congratulations. So I am now here with Jessica Hazzard-White. Jessica, as you may know, it's Valentine's Day next week, and the patron saint of the lovers is St. Valentine. Who is your patron saint of skepticism?
You're going to cringe at me when I say this, but Trish Hann is my patron saint of skepticism, because we need more smart, young, ballsy women in skepticism who don't take any shit, and that is what you do.
She just called me young. Okay, I'm changing my answer to Jessica Hazzard-White.
It's a skeptical romance.
For Valentine's Day!
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. And now here's a note from our friends in Canberra, the Canberra Skeptics. Canberra Skeptics proudly presents Talking Plain About GMOs. Now this will be on Tuesday the 12th of March 2019, starting at 6 p.m, and the speaker is Jose Barrio. The venue, the Belconnen Community Services, 26 Chandler Street, Belconnen in the ACT, and the cost is free. Humans have been using breeding for thousands of years to genetically modify plants and animals since domestication started. But as the human population rapidly heads towards 8 billion people, the challenges of feeding ourselves is becoming greater. Genetically modified organisms, GMOs, is an essential technology to safely increase yields while minimizing the use of resources such as land or water and reducing the need for fertilizers and pesticides. However, only a handful of GMOs are currently approved and used in agriculture. General public opposition to GMOs is delaying the development and legislation of a multitude of beneficial GMOs and biotechnological applications. So find out more at that free talk, and for more information, just head to canberraskeptics.org or look them up on Facebook with a link in this week's show notes. Coming up on next week's show, we hope to bring you an interview with Mark Edward. Mark Edward, who wrote the book Psychic Blues about cold reading and psychic reading and all that sort of thing. Also this week, I'll give the word around to my reporters, see what goodies they can come up with. And thank you to those people who recently joined the Skeptic Zone via Patreon. You can do that at skepticzone.tv, and your contribution will keep the show going for everybody to enjoy. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Hello, you afterthought people, the people who hang around to play the dice game. 10-sided die, I've got it in a container this week. Rattling around. So the game is simple for those people new to play. Every once in a while, I'll roll a 10-sided die 3 times, and you have to use your... you have to use your psychic... Yes, you have to use your psychic predicting power to predict what number will come up. Well, you're predicting the past, really, because depending on when you're listening to this either happened a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few years ago, a few decades ago. Anyway, here we go. The dice is in the little container, the die. Going to roll it, rattle it 3 times and see what number comes up. Are you predicting? Here we go. First number. 3. Huh? Number 3. Ready again. Predict away. Here we go. And it stops on 2. 3 and 2. One last time. Predict. And it stops again on number 3. So 3, 2 and 3 are this week's winning numbers.